Hey guys, tonight we drift across whispering terraces, tracing soggy footsteps through amber-lit rice paddies as dusk sighs over ancient fields. You probably won't survive this without at least one startled yelp, because out there, beyond the last ridge, the Nian stirs in the twilight hush. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments so I know where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tread through damp mud between rows of emerald rice plants, each blade trembling in the breeze. Around 8000 BCE, early Chinese farmers first coaxed these same fields into yielding grain, a milestone in human civilization that set the rhythm of village life for millennia. The sky overhead glows burnt orange, and the air is sticky with ripening rice. You inhale the sweet scent of wet earth and plant stalks, imagining how your sandals might squelch with every step, like walking across a sponge cake you really don't want to eat. A faint rumble underfoot hints at something awakening. You pause, noticing the delicate rustle of leaves and the gentle drip of water droplets escaping the broad leaves. In the distance, a solitary heron lifts off, feathers whispering against the cooling air. No big deal, just your typical evening paddle through fields older than most cities. Except tonight, you're not alone. Legend says the Nian is a creature born of fear itself, drawn to harvest anxieties and empty granaries. Yet scholars still debate whether it originated as a river demon or as an embodiment of seasonal dread. Some argue it was once a dragon spirit tied to lunar rituals, while others insist it was merely a way to explain vanished livestock and questionable accounting practices by underpaid farmhands. There's no need to pick sides, of course. You're here to soak in the moment until those glowing eyes flicker through the reeds. Behind you, the lantern's flicker dances across rippled water, casting lily-pad shadows that look eerily like claws. You squint against the dim glow and catch the outline of something hulking among the stalks. Your heart does that thing where it momentarily forgets it's supposed to beat. You assure yourself it's just a water buffalo grazing, but deep down, you know buffalo don't have fangs that glint like freshly honed knives. To calm yourself, you recall a quirky village tale. Some farmers once believed that if you played a bamboo flute under the orange sky, the Nian would pause, enchanted by the soothing melody, long enough for you to slip away. There's no record of that actually working on the monster, but it makes for a nice bedtime anecdote, doesn't it? And if you ever feel like trying it, do let me know how it goes. Bonus points if you're streaming it live. As the light bleeds deeper into violet, the panorama shifts. Mist rises off flooded terraces, swirling like a ghostly silk scarf. You imagine each swirl could hide a dozen eyes watching your every move. The only company is the distant call of cicadas and your soft breathing, matched by the low hum of unseen insects. Every sense sharpens, you taste the cool dampness on your tongue. Feel the weight of the humid air on your skin, and hear the soft creak of bamboo stakes tethered to the paddy's edges. A gentle joke crosses your mind. If the Nian really hates rice, maybe you should negotiate a peaceful coexistence with some popcorn and a soda? No? Too modern? Fair point. You shift your weight, careful not to slip, the mud squelching satisfyingly underfoot, reminding you of that rice pudding you forgot to scoop out of the fridge this morning. Oops. Through the haze, you spot an ancient stone marker half submerged, its weathered carvings hint at ritual offerings made thousands of years ago. You step closer, brushing algae from its face, and trace the faint shapes of characters that once begged for protection against crop blight. Even then, villagers feared more than famine, they feared the Nian's hunger for chaos under the soft cloak of night. Something in the stalk snaps. You freeze, breath catching as a gentle tremor ripples through the field. It feels as though the earth itself is exhaling. For a heartbeat, the only sound is your own pulse roaring in your ears. Then, silence, so complete it almost hurts. Your imagination races. Is the Nian sizing you up, deciding whether you might taste better than last night's dumplings? You push forward, each step measured, ears straining for any hint of movement. There's a playful irony in creeping through fields meant for calm harvest, like tiptoeing through a library full of napping tigers. A light joke escapes. At least if you wake it, you'll have a roaring story for your next video. The glow of your lantern flickers again, and in its light you swear you see a massive shape slink between the Paddies' ridges. The Nian isn't charging yet. It seems curiously cautious, like it's sniffing the air for dinner that doesn't smell like rice. You realize your heartbeat has steadied. You're neither trapped nor entirely safe, just locked in this simmering moment where anything could happen. A distant bamboo flute echoes faintly, perhaps another soul braving the Paddies, offering their own lullaby to ward off monsters. As you listen, the creature retreats slightly, as if respecting music more than humans. Or maybe it just wants a better vantage point. Either way, you take a slow breath, tasting that humid sweetness one last time before pressing deeper into the fading light. You press forward, deeper into the mist-slicked fields, where the air hangs heavy with steam and the soft plunk of frogs hopping between waterlogged furrows keeps you company. The amber glow has all but drained from the sky now, and a soft purplish hue settles in, the kind of twilight that makes every tree stump look like it might stand up and start walking. The Nian is quiet. That's the problem. You take one cautious step after another, mind drifting toward how all of this began. Not you, obviously. You didn't just appear in a paddy field like a dumpling from the clouds, but the creature, the myth, the reason farmers centuries ago started putting fire and red paper near their doors. The Nian, according to early folklore, some whispered, some scribbled in brittle scrolls, was no ordinary monster. It wasn't content to nibble on grain or sneak a chicken leg when no one was watching. No, it had a preference for full-on chaos, broken doors, overturned granaries, and yes, the occasional unlucky villager. But what's interesting isn't just what the Nian did, but why it showed up in the first place. Some believe the myth started in southern China, somewhere in the hills where rice was first cultivated around the lower Yangtze River. These were early Neolithic communities, clinging to order in a world of floods, droughts, and overly curious spirits. And when a bad year hit, when crops failed or water refused to rise in time, it was easier to blame something with glowing eyes than, say, bad irrigation planning. You imagine a council of very tired farmers, probably sitting on upside-down baskets, debating whether the Nian had been offended by last week's dumpling festival or maybe just didn't like the way someone stared at the moon. Human nature hasn't changed much. We're still looking for patterns in the dark. The Nian itself, according to some regional traditions, emerged once a year right at the end of the lunar calendar. Conveniently, that was also when rice stores were at their lowest, people were most tired, and a general mood of please not again was hanging in the air. In that tension, the Nian thrived, as both an explanation and a warning. Be prepared. Keep your lanterns lit. Don't slack off in the Paddies. The old scrolls describe it as a creature with the body of a lion, scales like a fish, and long twisting horns. A bizarre fusion, yes, but one that made sense if you lived in a region prone to floods, wild predators, and fish storms. Okay, fish storms are rare, but if flying carp start falling from the sky, now you'll know what to blame. You pause at a small stone shrine set along the field's border. It's low to the ground, moss-covered, and half forgotten, but there's still a folded slip of red paper tucked beneath a tiny ceramic roof tile. Maybe a wish. Maybe a warning. You don't peek. Some things are better left unopened, like antique pickled eggs or your middle school poetry. A soft breeze carries the scent of rice blossoms, earth, and distant incense. Someone is burning sandalwood, perhaps as part of a protective ritual. You stand quietly, letting the scent wrap around you like a shawl, eyes scanning the tree line where mist gathers like gossip, not far from where you stand. The story goes, an old woman once confronted the Nian alone. Not with weapons, she brought a bowl of sticky rice and a bronze mirror. Supposedly, the beast saw its reflection, screamed, and ran straight through 3 fences before vanishing into the hills. The villagers built her a small pagoda and never questioned her again, of course. Some say the Nian was just scared of its own reflection. Others believe the sticky rice was made with a rare mountain honey known for tranquilizing effects. Either way, it's good news if you happen to be carrying both a mirror and dessert. The deeper you go into the Paddies, the more the world feels flattened, like everything's been wrapped in soft gauze. The croaking of frogs becomes rhythmic, meditative. Somewhere far off, a nightjar sings its strange, looped lullaby. The kind of sound that makes you want to sit down, hug your knees, and whisper, well, if the Nian gets me, at least the ambience is excellent. You step around a ridge and suddenly find yourself facing a low bamboo footbridge. It creaks under your weight, the wood slick with moisture, its thin railing tied with faded red cloth. These cloths were once bright talismans, placed to frighten the Nian with their bold color. Legend says it hates red, can't stand it. Some storytellers insist it's because red represents fire, or luck, or blood. Others simply note that every story needs a weakness, and red was lying around in abundance. You touch the fabric gently. It's frayed, but it still holds the ghost of intention, the whisper of protection placed by someone long gone. You cross slowly, the water beneath smooth and silent. No ripples. No sign of movement. Then, just as your foot lands on the other side, you hear it. A low, throaty growl. Not near. Not far. A sound that slips through the gaps between thoughts. You don't freeze this time. You breathe in, then out. One growl doesn't mean doom. It might mean indigestion. It might mean the Nian stubbed a toe. You press onward, a smile pulling at the edge of your lips despite yourself. There's something beautifully absurd about walking through a rice field in the dark, telling yourself bedtime stories while being possibly stalked by a beast that dislikes rice. And maybe mirrors. Remember, this creature, for all its scales and roars, was never meant to be invincible. It was created by people like you, people who needed to name the tension of winter's end, who needed a shape to hang their fears on. And you? You're walking through that shape, with muddy feet and a steady heartbeat, bringing the story back to life. Ahead, the mist thickens, silvering the air until everything vanishes into softness. You follow the ribbon of the footpath as it curves gently along the paddy's edge, the mist now hugging your legs like a clingy cat that smells of mildew. The horizon has completely vanished. There's no moon to guide you, no stars, just you, the hushed rustle of windblown rice stalks, and the occasional sound of your own breathing, which is starting to feel louder than it really should. Somewhere nearby, water laps at an unseen embankment. A frog belches unhelpfully. You are now fully immersed in the kind of setting where if someone handed you a bamboo flute and said, play or perish, you'd probably give it a decent go. Your thoughts drift, as they tend to do when walking alone in the dark through fields haunted by ancient rice-hating monsters. You imagine what the Nian might have looked like in its earliest depictions, not in the grand temple paintings from dynasties past, but in the hand-carved festival masks from rural villages. Many were oddly playful, wide-toothed grins, bright swirling eyes, horns that looked suspiciously like banana leaves. These weren't the terrifying visages of demonic nightmares. They were theatrical, exaggerated, like someone trying to make a lion look scary using only kitchen utensils and a bad attitude. Why? Because fear, when performed, becomes manageable. And that's where the story becomes something more than folklore. It becomes therapy with streamers. Festival time, especially near the Lunar New Year, was when villages would reenact the Nian's arrival and banishment. There'd be drumming, firecrackers, red banners flapping in the breeze, and children parading around in lion costumes. the Nian would appear, played by someone's over-enthusiastic uncle, and the crowd would drive it away with noise and laughter. That's the secret at the heart of it all. Joy is the oldest defense we have. You smile softly, even as a twig snaps behind you, definitely not the wind. You turn, but the fog is dense now, so thick it feels like you're moving through the inside of a steamed bun. You reach for your lantern, but it sputters, throwing weak shadows on the ground. Still, you press forward. You can hear something breathing out there. Or maybe that's just the paddies exhaling. These terraces have seen more than their fair share of strange stories. In the Song dynasty, rice cultivation became even more refined. Farmers used a technique called double cropping, allowing them to grow 2 harvests per year. This not only fed booming populations, but it also intensified the myth's presence. If the Nian ruined your first harvest, there was still a second chance. But if both failed? Well, that's when the stories took a darker turn. Some accounts from southern provinces say families would offer bowls of cooked rice on the doorstep with a scrap of meat or dried fish if they were feeling thrifty. The idea was simple: give the Nian something to eat so it doesn't eat you. Practical, poetic, and perhaps a little passive-aggressive. You pass a stone stele, mostly obscured by moss. There's a dragon coiled around its side, mouth open mid-roar. You run your fingers along the grooves, wondering if this too was meant to scare away the Nian. Or maybe the dragon was the village's patron spirit, offering protection in exchange for incense, song, and polite applause during festivals. A breeze brushes your cheek. It's colder now. You duck under a twisted banyan tree, its roots forming an arch over the path. A red ribbon flutters from one branch, tied in a faded knot. Someone made a wish here, not recently, but not that long ago either. In some parts of rural China, ribbons are tied to trees believed to be home to spirits. Wishes, prayers, warnings, they all flutter the same way. Maybe the ribbon was left for protection. Or maybe it was for the Nian itself. A lonely creature, only summoned once a year, chased off by noise and color. Perhaps someone, once upon a time, wished it peace. That thought lingers longer than you expect, because here's the curious thing: not all versions of the Nian legend are entirely hostile. In certain dialect stories, often passed down orally rather than written, it said the Nian didn't come to destroy, but to test. To see whether the village was still strong, still unified. If it could be driven away with light and laughter, then all was well. You stopped to sip from a canteen slung over your shoulder. The water's warm, a little stale, but comforting. It tastes like boiled stone and iron, the kind of water that's been through a dozen copper pots and seen every kind of weather. You sit on a low rock and let yourself breathe. Somewhere far behind, a light flickers. Not yours. Not fireflies. Something else. It sways side to side, not quite in rhythm, as if testing whether it should move closer. But it doesn't. You stare at it until your eyes water, then look away. When you glance back, it's gone. You mutter a joke under your breath about 5-star reviews for haunted rice fields. Would haunt again, you whisper, standing slowly, and then, from the mist ahead, you hear it, a low rhythmic thump. Not hoofbeats. Not footsteps. Something heavier. A rolling sound, like a massive creature pacing along the terraces. But again, it keeps its distance. You begin walking again, steadier now. Whatever it is, it's not charging. It's watching. Curious. Like it hasn't seen someone walk this path in a while. Maybe it's even a little bored. You picture the Nian lying on its side somewhere in the mist, one massive paw scratching its chin, wondering whether to make a dramatic entrance or just let you keep wandering. Perhaps it's amused by how many generations have tried to dress it up, scare it off, or bargain with it using steamed buns and paper cuts. You don't blame it. You reach the next ridge, overlooking a deeper basin of paddies. tiered like steps leading into the belly of the earth. Mist pools in the hollows, and beyond that, the soft shape of an old pavilion appears, barely more than a skeleton of bamboo and roof tile. It's where the villagers used to store drums, masks, and fireworks for the New Year ceremonies. Or at least that's what the stories say. Now it's just a shape in the fog, inviting in its loneliness. The growl has faded, the air is still. You walk toward the pavilion. Inside the pavilion, the silence settles over you like dust, fine, weightless, inescapable. There's a musky tang in the air, aged wood, and something older still, maybe old incense or the faintest whisper of spent firecrackers. You step lightly, the wooden floor groaning in protest under your weight. It's a wonder this place is still standing. The interior is spare, a few cracked beams, a ceremonial drum that's lost its skin, and a scattering of paper charms pasted haphazardly on the walls. Most have faded to blank parchment, but a few still carry flickers of ink, brush strokes so elegant they almost hum with movement. You recognize the character for peace, and another one you think might be banish. Or maybe snack. The brush strokes are optimistic. You sit cross-legged near the doorway, lantern resting beside you. Outside, the mist has thickened again, rising up in slow swells like it's trying to peek in. You half expect a nose to press against the doorway. Maybe a paw. Maybe a snout large enough to blot out the moon, if there were one. There's a comfort in being still. Even the imagined monsters seem to pause. You breathe deep. Now, picture this, centuries ago. This very structure might have been at the heart of a small village's Lunar New Year celebration. Children would run circles around it, shrieking with laughter and sugar-fueled chaos. Adults would prepare the festival food, glutinous rice cakes. Tang yuan, sticky and soft and always made in massive, over-optimistic quantities. You can almost smell the sesame and ginger, and always, at the climax of the celebration, the Nian would come, not the real one, of course. A painted mask, a costume made of red cloth and palm leaves, two dancers inside mimicking a beast's lurching steps. One would control the head, big, loud, full of snapping jaw motions. The other would control the back legs, trying not to trip over discarded dumplings. With a crash of gongs and a burst of firecrackers, the villagers would drive the Nian away again, just like last year. Just like the year before. There's a rhythm to rituals, and in repetition, there's safety. You start to wonder if the Nian ever got tired of playing the same role. It's worth noting here that Nian isn't just a name, it also means year in Mandarin. So in some sense, the beast isn't just a monster. It's time itself, thundering into the village, disrupting the old order, demanding attention. And every year, it must be confronted, danced with, banished. So the new can begin. You stretch your legs, joints cracking softly like kindling. Your mind drifts again, in one remote region near the Yunnan border. There's a variation of the story that paints the Nian not as a beast of destruction, but as a misunderstood guardian, drawn not to destroy the village, but to test whether it's still honored its traditions. If the villagers fail to perform the right rites, light the right lanterns, or share food with the hungry, then yes, the Nian would snarl and knock over water jars, but if they remembered, it would pass silently by. It's a subtle difference, but a powerful one. From destroyer to examiner. From villain to misunderstood bureaucrat with horns. You imagine the Nian ticking boxes on a massive clipboard, red banners? Check. Sticky rice cakes? Check. Drunk uncle singing loudly at midnight? Big check. You wonder if you'd pass its inspection. Outside, a soft chime. Not a bell, exactly, more like a string of coins shifting in the breeze. You stand slowly, curiosity outweighing your common sense. You step back outside, and there, not 10 feet away, stands a figure. Not the Nian, not yet. No, this figure is human. Maybe. They wear robes, loose and flowing, patterned faintly with fish scales and cloud motifs. Their face is hidden beneath a conical hat, pulled low over the eyes. One hand grips a tall walking stick. The other holds a small paper lantern, its flickering light swaying gently in the mist. You freeze. So do they, then they nod, once, and walk away, not fast. Not with fear. Just like someone who's been through this path before and knows there's no need to rush. You wait a beat, then follow. Of course you do. As you walk, you think about another oddity from the Nian lore, its dislike not just of red or firecrackers, but of brooms. Yes, brooms. In some regions, sweeping on the first day of the new year is considered bad luck, not because it's tedious, but because it might accidentally sweep away good fortune. Or worse, alert the Nian to weakness. In other stories, villagers used brooms against the Nian, tapping on door frames and corners to shoo it out, as though it were an oversized rat with expensive taste. It's all wonderfully contradictory. But then again, folklore often is. It's not meant to be consistent. It's meant to hold meaning, layer upon layer, like lacquered wood, protective, polished, occasionally a bit sticky. The figure ahead pauses at a small wooden bridge and turns slightly, just enough for you to notice that their lantern bears the same faded character you saw in the pavilion. Peace. They cross the bridge and vanish into the mist. You stop. Something tells you this part of the journey is meant to be walked alone, so you stay and look around. The mist curls more lazily now. The paddies are quiet, save for the sound of water trickling between terraces. There's no growl. No thunder. Just the low, persistent hum of a place holding its breath, and that's when you see them, eyes, dozens. Lined along the far ridge of the paddy, glowing faintly, amber, not angry. Observing. The shape of something impossibly long, body low to the ground, almost serpentine. A pair of horns, crooked like old tree roots. The faint glint of claws, but no movement. The Nian is here, and it is not charging. You do not move. You barely breathe. The air between you and the creature is thick with waiting. The Nian, if that is what it truly is, stands impossibly still across the paddy terraces, its many eyes unblinking, aglow like lanterns submerged beneath tea. It doesn't snarl. It doesn't roar. Instead, the beast exhales, soft and low, like a distant cave wind. You feel it, faintly, in your chest more than your ears. The kind of sound that loosens the tight corners of your thoughts, and here's the strange thing, you're not afraid. Not really. A little awestruck, maybe. A little cold, definitely. But the creature's gaze is not hostile. Curious, perhaps. Or simply ancient. The kind of gaze that's seen many such moments before. And is in no particular hurry to make this one special. You remain by the bridge, your feet planted on old, moss-laced stone. Between you, the rice paddies lie in tiered curves, shimmering gently beneath the mist like a great earthen mirror. One tremor, one misplaced step, and the illusion could vanish. But you're not about to test it. Now, let's talk about rice. Yes, rice. Not the most thrilling subject on paper, but believe it or not, it plays a crucial role in the Nian myth. In many versions of the tale, the villagers defend themselves not just with red cloth or firecrackers, but with bowls of rice porridge left at the thresholds of their homes. Why rice? Because it represents abundance, hospitality, and, perhaps most important, sticky inconvenience. You see, the Nian has a particular aversion to sticky textures. The rice porridge, especially when cooled into its signature gelatinous mass, would trap the creature's paws, making it clumsy and frustrated. This may sound like folklore's version of stepping in gum, but it's surprisingly common. Many traditional spirits and monsters across Asia have weaknesses that sound oddly mundane. Like being confused by knots. or allergic to garlic, or, in this case, flummoxed by a carbohydrate. This detail gives the Nian a kind of lovable flaw, doesn't it? Like a dragon with a peanut allergy. You can picture it huffing indignantly, shaking its paws, muttering something about inferior culinary strategy in a guttural dialect no one understands anymore, but there's also something deeper at play here. Rice isn't just food, it's ritual. In many rural areas, rice paddies are considered sacred spaces, not merely agricultural zones. They're carefully terraced, maintained with almost obsessive precision, and often bounded by spirit stones or charms to ward off bad fortune. Stepping into one casually, especially at dusk, is seen as, well, asking for it, which brings us to the old saying whispered in the hill villages, don't walk the paddies at dusk. Unless you have rice in your mouth and red on your sleeve. Charming, yes, but also a practical reminder. Dusk is when the Nian walks, when it prowls in search of imbalance, and rice, sticky and symbolic, offers a kind of peace treaty. Here, it seems to say, take this and leave us be. You think again of the glowing eyes, still watching. There's no movement, no menace. Only that eerie stillness, like the hush between acts in a grand old play. You shift slightly, enough to stretch your calves but not enough to break the spell. A breeze rustles the rice stalks around you. Somewhere, faintly, a frog croaks, bold, considering the company, and now, let's add a wrinkle to the story. Some versions of the legend, less well-known, mostly whispered between old farmers and certain mischievous storytellers, claim that the Nian didn't always fear rice. In fact, in one particularly strange telling from the mountainous border near Guizhou, the Nian was once born of the rice fields. Yes. Not a predator of the paddies, but their accidental guardian. According to that version, the Nian rose from a spoiled batch of sacred seed rice, fermented and forgotten during a drought. The villagers, desperate and grieving, buried the seed deep in the wettest terrace. A month later, something crawled out. Not quite beast, not quite god. Hungry, uncertain, shimmering with scales made of translucent husks, it didn't speak. It just watched, and when another drought came the following year, the rice miraculously grew, golden and lush. The villagers thanked the Nian with offerings, jars of sweet wine, woven charms, even a silk scarf. It was only later, when the people forgot to offer thanks, that the creature grew angry. You can't help but like that version better. It paints the Nian as a creature of balance, not destruction for its own sake, but a kind of cosmic accountant. You mess with the harmony of rice and ritual, you get a surprise visitor with too many teeth and a curious fondness for evaluating your pantry. The figure from earlier, the one with the fish-scaled robe and gentle gait, flashes through your mind again. Were they a priest? A spirit? An old villager reliving memories from 1,000 dusk walks ago. You glance behind you. The bridge is empty, the Nian's eyes blink. Once, and vanish, no growl. No flash. Just gone. You let out a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. Your legs, relieved, finally sit you down, in the damp hush. It's hard to believe anything just happened. No footprints. No sound. The paddies ripple softly, innocently, as if they've never hosted a myth in their lives. A clever disguise, you pull your cloak tighter, the damp nibbling at your shoulders. Part of you wants to run, to reach the safety of that pavilion again. But a stronger part, maybe the one the Nian inspected and passed over, says stay, let the night finish what it started. You don't move for a while. The air is thick with quiet now, but not a suffocating kind. It's the kind of quiet that feels earned. Like the moment after a good soup is set to simmer, still, steamy, complete. The Nian is gone, for now, and you've been left behind with the faint warmth of knowing that you weren't interesting enough to be eaten. A flattering outcome, Really, you stand slowly, knees popping like old furniture, and begin walking again. Not back toward the pavilion, but deeper into the terraces, following the curves as if they were carved not by human hands but by the winding of a giant snake. The mist still lingers, but it behaves now, as if too respectful to obscure your way. Your lantern flickers, low on oil, casting long shadows behind you. Each rice stalk dances slightly in its glow, slender soldiers in a field older than kingdoms. As you descend a narrow footpath, a scent hits you, unexpected, sweet. Fermented plum and smoke. You turn your head and spot a tiny shrine nestled against a slope. The kind that's half shrugged into existence, clearly maintained by someone who both believes deeply in spirits and never has quite enough time for upkeep. A ceramic bowl sits out front, filled with half-dissolved sweets. Candied lotus root, maybe. A chunk of melon rind. There's also a hand-rolled cigarette tucked between two pebbles. Apparently the local spirits enjoy both snacks and smokes. A balanced afterlife, you offer a polite bow. Just in case, then, your eye catches a carving etched into the shrine stone base, faint, worn, but still legible in the right light. It's a depiction of a creature, horned, long-bodied, with oversized feet and what seems to be a scroll in its mouth. You squint. Is that writing? The scroll reads, crudely, in clumsy calligraphy, tidy fields. Peaceful year. It hits you then, again, the Nian isn't a villain. It's a memo. A moving, breathing New Year's resolution wrapped in clause and ceremonial trauma. Its message is simple: order your world, or something will do it for you. You grin. Then, from the slope above, a soft rustle. You look up, instinctively clutching your lantern. A silhouette appears, smaller than the Nian, far more human. It's an old woman, bent nearly in half by time, holding a rake over one shoulder and what appears to be a bundle of rice seedlings in the other. She does not speak. Just nods. You nod back. She walks past you, rake tapping the stones with each step. Her breath puffs visibly in the damp air, like slow signals. She disappears into the lower terraces, moving with that deep, practiced rhythm of someone who's done the same task every dusk for 50 years and would prefer not to be interrupted. A memory stirs. In certain mountain villages, old women were once considered guardians of the fields, not just because they were the ones who worked them, but because they knew the rituals. They knew when to sow, when to burn, when to sing to the seedlings, and when to sprinkle wine along the rows, and in some places, they were the ones who negotiated with the Nian. One tale, rare but precious, tells of an old widow who struck a deal with the creature. It had come storming into her village one New Year's Eve, expecting chaos, destruction, the usual. But instead of hiding, she met it in the field with a bowl of sticky rice and a full bottle of plum wine. The Nian, baffled but intrigued, Saturday, they drank, they talked. Or maybe she talked and it listened. By dawn, she had convinced the Nian to return once a year, not as a terror, but as a reminder. In exchange, the village would always keep its paddies clean, its offerings sincere, and its elders respected. The Nian agreed. And from then on, each year, the village greeted it with drums and rice, not screams. Of course, most scholars dismiss this story as folk fantasy. But scholars rarely carry rice up a slope at dusk. You know better now. You keep walking. Your path curves into a wide terrace, where the paddies ripple like glass. The mist begins to thin, giving way to the sheen of moonlight. You hadn't noticed the moon rise. It must have crept up behind you, gentle as breath. Its light coats everything in a silver glaze, softening even the crooked outlines of trees and huts on the distant ridge. Here, the landscape stretches open. And standing at the edge of the field is something unexpected, a scarecrow, not the usual kind. No tattered shirt, no pumpkin head. This one is dressed in full ceremonial red, bright, undulled by rain or time. Its arms are outstretched, and its face is painted onto a wooden disc, wide eyes, thick black brows, and a mouth fixed in a bold, toothy grin. Not frightening, more like cheerfully deranged, and stitched into its chest is a square patch of cloth bearing a single, enormous character, Nian. You stare. Somewhere between absurdity and reverence, the scarecrow stands like a cartoonish peacekeeper. You get the sense that it's here not to scare crows, but to remind the Nian it's already been expected, already been seen, already been acknowledged, like setting out a name tag for your chaos a wind picks up. The scarecrow's sleeves flap lightly, waving at you. Or warning you. The lines always blurry in myth. Behind it, the paddies shimmer. Beneath you, frogs begin their slow evening chorus. Your feet ache, your stomach growls, and your lantern finally dims, surrendering to the night, but still, you don't leave. There's something about this moment, this small field beneath a wide, moon-soaked sky, that feels more real than anything you've known in days. You are a visitor. A witness. Not a hero, not a sacrifice. Just someone who wandered in, eyes open, rice in your bag, and red somewhere on your sleeve, which, by the way, you suddenly remember. You do, your scarf. A faded red. Unintentionally wise, lucky, that. You start back down the path, scarf brushing softly against your neck, the red fabric catching moonlight like it knows it's doing something important. You've long since stopped expecting logic from the night. At this point, even the frogs seem like they're humming in ancient dialects. As you move, the terrain subtly shifts. The terraces widen into flatter fields, and you begin to notice traces of human life again, less mystical, more practical. A bent bamboo ladder rests against a low tree. Woven baskets have been left out to dry, their reeds swollen from recent rain. It's a quiet return to the world of chores and errands, a reminder that while myths may wander these hills, someone still has to sort the irrigation channels and soak the beans. You pass a shed with a half-open door and the strong scent of something fermented wafting out. Inside, in large clay urns, rice wine sleeps under wax seals. A rooster dozes atop a lid, barely blinking at your passing. You try not to wake him. After all, he has an important job come morning, and no one respects time off quite like poultry. Further ahead, you spot a woman kneeling beside a small fire pit, the kind built from 3 rocks and 1 pot. She's turning something in a shallow pan. It smells sweet and sharp, ginger, maybe. As you approach, she glances up and gives the smallest of nods. No surprise. Just recognition. As if she expected you, wordlessly, she holds up the pan. Inside, puffed rice, golden, brittle, glistening faintly with honey. You hesitate, then take a piece. It crunches like snow underfoot. Light, warm, a little smoky. This is the real secret, you realize. Not bells, not firecrackers, not scrolls or costumes. The Nian feared order, yes, and light, and noise, but mostly, it feared the taste of home. The taste of a village refusing to tremble. Of a field tended. Of a ritual shared. You eat another piece. The woman smiles, then returns to stirring. There's a story, less flashy than others, about a time when the Nian appeared not in fury but confusion. It wandered into a village during the New Year festival and found the streets alive, lanterns swinging, laughter echoing, rice candy sticking to children's hands. It stood in the square for hours, frozen. One of the elders noticed and walked up with a cup of tea. "Come back next year," he said. "You're welcome if you're civil." The Nian blinked once, twice, and then vanished. It returned every year after, same day, same hour. Never smashed a thing. Just stood in the square, sipped tea, and watched the lion dances until the sun rose. Some say the Nian had always been lonely. Others say it simply didn't want to miss the snacks. Either way, the village kept the kettle ready. You finish your puffed rice and continue on. The air grows denser again, not with mist this time, but with smell. Smoke. Incense. Ashes. You're nearing the main village, finally. And it seems something's happening tonight. A string of red paper banners hangs over the path, each strip fluttering with characters painted in bold strokes. Not just the usual spring and luck ones, either. These are elaborate blessings, harmony at the table, ghosts begone, strong tea, soft words, no surprises. You're not sure if these are traditional or just hyper-specific. The gates to the village stand slightly ajar. You slip through. Inside, the world is lit not by street lamps, but by lanterns, hundreds of them, swaying from poles, porches, and trees. Red and gold and paper thin, casting the whole village in a warm, dreamlike glow. Children run past, faces sticky with syrup, holding sparklers. A dog wears a scarf. Someone plays a flute badly from an upstairs window, and no one tells them to stop. And in the center of the square, of course, is a stage. The backdrop is hand-painted cloth showing mountains, waves, and one very exaggerated dragon. 3 people in crimson robes stand just behind the curtain, adjusting masks. One mask, you notice, looks like the Nian, except with googly eyes and comically oversized teeth. This is not a production meant to frighten. You find a place on a wooden bench as the drums begin. It's a low rhythm at first, like the heartbeat of the village itself, then picks up into a cheerful thump that makes your fingers want to tap along. The play is simple. A retelling of the old story, more comedic than terrifying. The villagers scream in slow motion. The Nian arrives with just hands. At one point, someone throws a cabbage and misses completely. You chuckle quietly, not wanting to disturb the child asleep on their grandmother's shoulder beside you, but there's something deeply comforting about this retelling, this reclaiming. The monster isn't defeated by violence, but by choreography. It's danced off stage, tamed by rhythm and community. At the end, the cast bows. The Nian mask is lifted. A young girl stands underneath, grinning ear to ear. The crowd cheers. Someone tosses an orange. The grandmother beside you mutters, she'll be guardian next year, if she remembers the rice cakes. You consider asking for clarification, but don't. Sometimes it's better to let mysteries dangle like lantern tassels. The firecrackers are next. You move to the edge of the square where the crowd is thickest, all eyes on a massive bundle of red tubes set up like a spine against the side of the temple wall. A man with singed eyebrows counts down, very dramatically, from 10, and then, silence, he checks the fuse, then, bang, the single firecracker goes off with a weak pop, followed by an awkward pause, then a series of erratic bangs like popcorn made by someone with a vendetta against kettles. People laugh, shout, cover their ears, clap anyway. A paper banner falls from the temple roof. It reads, "Nice try." The Nian, wherever it may be, surely hears. You wander from the crowd, your ears ringing in the friendliest way possible. The scent of sulfur trails behind you. Your path takes you toward the temple's rear garden, where fewer people wander. Here, it's darker. Softer. The drums have quieted, and you hear only the wind and the soft trickle of water from a bamboo fountain, and there, half-tucked behind a stack of offerings, is a tiny figurine, clay. Hand-formed. Crude but unmistakable, a little Nian, curled like a sleeping cat. Someone left a note with it, in simple brush script, "Thank you for letting us stay another year." You close your eyes for a moment. Maybe that's all any of this ever was, a negotiation. Between wildness and order. Between fear and familiarity. Between monsters and puffed rice, and tonight, balance has been struck. Your breath mists gently as you step back into the clearing. The bamboo fountain clinks on, rhythmic and slow, almost like a lullaby being poured in pieces. The little Nian figurine stays nestled among the incense and fruit offerings, and for a moment, you feel like an intruder. Not on a ritual, exactly, but on a kind of peace. Still, there's something inviting about the garden at night. A path curls lazily beyond the temple grounds, lanterns thinning until only one or two dot the edges, hanging from low branches. You follow it, not entirely sure where it leads, but content to let the dark cradle your curiosity. The earth underfoot grows softer, no longer paved, not even worn, just soil with a light dusting of fallen leaves. Above you, the trees stretch into silhouettes. They whisper to one another in that way trees do, swaying, brushing, pretending they don't know you're listening. Your scarf catches on a twig and you stop to untangle it, only to discover a bundle of paper charms tied right there, each bearing a simple phrase like good teeth, no damp socks, and one that reads, forgive and remember. You smile. Somewhere, an elder is grinning at their own little joke. Eventually, the trees thin again, and you emerge into another terrace, this one not planted with rice, but blanketed in flat stones, smoothed by countless feet. A courtyard. And at the far end, built low and wide, stands a small shrine. Its roof curves like a sleeping dragon's back. Candles flicker in shallow dishes outside, their flames stubborn in the breeze. It's not flashy like the temple, not grand like the stage. This place is older, quieter. You approach with instinctive caution, like it might scold you for stepping too loudly. Inside, the shrine is one room. No attendants, no signs. Just a large painted carving, again, of the Nian, but here it's different. Less monstrous. It's crouched, contemplative. Not attacking a village, but staring into a bowl of rice. You almost laugh out loud. The details are vivid, the rough grain of its claws, the etching of fur that seems more like moss, the way its eyes have been painted slightly cross-eyed, as though it doesn't quite understand what it's looking at. Beneath the carving sits a box, worn from decades of coins and prayers. And beside that, a guest book, a real one. With a pen, you open it. The entries vary wildly. Some are elegant calligraphy, blessings for health and love. Others are in shaky block letters, drawings from children, hearts, stick figures with flaming hair labeled Nian. One reads, simply, thank you for letting my cat find her way back. You add a line of your own. It's not profound, not polished. Just a little note to say you've been here. That it meant something, you linger a while, letting the candlelight draw shadows across the shrine floor. It flickers like a memory, like 1,000 stories retold until even the silences start to feel sacred. Then you turn back into the night, you retrace your steps, and this time, the path feels even softer. As though the earth itself is cushioning your way. The air has cooled, but not in a sharp or biting way, more like the cool of a freshly aired room. Clean. Expectant, back near the temple, the crowds have thinned. The laughter now is quieter, the kind that comes at the tail end of a long night. The drums are silent, replaced by the gentle clatter of chopsticks and bowls. Late-night snacks are being served, of course. You drift toward the food stalls, drawn by the scent of sesame and something spicy. A man with a towel around his head is frying scallion pancakes, flipping them with theatrical flair, occasionally winking at the children peeking over the counter. Midnight needs grease, he says to no one in particular. You nod solemnly, as if this were a sacred truth. He hands you a pancake folded into a triangle. Crisp, flaky, filled with warmth. The scallions are sharp but sweetened by the dough, and you chew slowly, letting the flavor sit with you. On a nearby bench, a group of elders is deep in discussion. Not about taxes or crops, but about whether the Nian might prefer dumplings to fish, and what this might mean for next year's decorations. One of them insists the creature once appeared disguised as a traveling opera singer, but had to leave because it didn't understand harmony. I told you, she says, it tried to sing and all the dogs howled. You stifle a giggle, someone sets off a single sparkler, just one. It fizzes quietly in the dark, sending up a brief, silver arc of light before fading into a hiss. The children clap. One of them yawns so hard they nearly topple over. You find yourself wondering, idly, what would happen if the Nian simply stayed 1 year? Didn't flee, didn't vanish. Just lived here. Would anyone mind? Probably not. Someone would knit it a scarf. Someone else would argue about its table manners. A third would insist it help with the morning sweep. And that, perhaps, would be the end of the myth. Not with a roar, but with chores. You finish the last bite of your pancake. The embers of the festival are fading now, but not in a sad way. More like the soft ending of a lullaby. The kind that doesn't resolve every note. Because it knows the listener is already half asleep, you feel the weight of the night settle into your shoulders, not heavy, just firm, like a thick blanket being tucked in. And just as you're about to rise and begin your walk back toward the hills, you hear it, a distant growl, not angry. Not hungry, just curious, like something old and misunderstood is sniffing the air and wondering if it's too late for seconds. You smile. Because, of course, it isn't.
Section 9. You make your way down a different path now, one that slips behind the food stalls and winds between houses where the light is beginning to dim. Paper lanterns still bob outside doorways, some shaped like rabbits, others like dragons with fat bellies and goofy smiles. The scent of fireworks clings faintly to the air, mixed now with the softer smells of burnt sugar and steamed buns left too long on the tray. The village has entered the quiet stage of celebration, that sweet, drowsy moment where even joy starts to yawn. And somewhere in that hush, you find the rice paddies again. But now they are different. Gone is the sunlit shimmer. The paddies at dusk are something else entirely. Still, but alive. You step carefully onto the earthen edge between rows, the mud soft and cool through your shoes. Frogs hum low in the water. Fireflies blink lazily above the surface, like tiny stars rehearsing for their big sky debut. Here, the Nian was always afraid to tread. Remember, it seems odd at first. These paddies feel more dream than danger. How could something so peaceful be a source of dread for a creature as fearsome as the Nian? And yet, that's the whole point. For centuries, villagers have whispered that the Nian, despite its teeth and thunder, feared the dusk, not because of the dark, but because of what settled into the paddies when the sun slipped down. Not monsters. Not magic. Something subtler, stillness. It was said the Nian's senses were too sharp, its hearing too tuned. Silence, real silence, made it flinch. It craved noise to orient itself. Without the bang of drums or the crackle of fire, the Nian could not tell if it was safe or alone. And in the rice paddies at dusk, everything goes quiet. The frogs hush when you step too near. The breeze barely rustles the stalks. It's like the land itself is holding its breath, and for a creature used to storming and stomping, that kind of calm? That's terrifying. You move along the paddy edge slowly, your feet squelching just enough to keep you tethered to the present. A lantern floats in the distance, released, probably, by a child. It drifts gently, the flame inside it flickering like a heartbeat. The rice plants bend slightly under their own weight. Some are nearly ready for harvest. Others are still green and thin, like shy children peeking out from behind their older siblings. You kneel for a moment and trail your fingers through the water. It's warmer than expected. Smooth. You wonder how many generations of villagers have done the same, checking the water, whispering to the paddies, maybe even asking them to protect the land while they slept. The idea that rice paddies could act as shields, even against a monster, is oddly comforting. Not with swords or spells, but with silence, a kind of gentleness too powerful to resist. Of course, there are other theories too. Less poetic, but no less charming. One local tale suggests the Nian had terribly sensitive feet. All those claws? No padding. So, stepping into a flooded paddy was like walking on a bed of thumbtacks. Which, frankly, would make anyone rethink their route. Another version, this one told with great seriousness by an old potter earlier in the evening, claims the Nian once fell face-first into a paddy while chasing a goat and emerged covered in leeches, forever traumatized. But the elders who speak quietly, the ones who lace their tales with long pauses and long looks, insist the real reason the Nian avoided these places was something else: reflection. Not metaphorical reflection, no, actual reflection. In the still waters of the paddy, it saw itself. Not the shadow it liked to cast across hills. Not the chaos it caused in cities. Just its own face. Rippled, yes, but recognizable, and maybe, just maybe, the Nian didn't like what it saw, a creature built on fear, confronted with its own loneliness. You lean back on your elbows, watching the reflection of the lantern float across the paddy surface. Your own face joins it briefly, then vanishes as a frog hops nearby. It's quiet again, then you hear footsteps, soft, deliberate. Coming from behind the nearest tree, you don't startle. Somehow, you know it isn't danger. It's just company. An old woman steps into view, a small clay jug in her hands. She sees you and nods, not startled, not annoyed, just acknowledging. Like she's seen you before in a dream, she crouches beside the paddy and pours something into the water. Not much. Just a drizzle of dark liquid that swirls and fades almost instantly. Sweet wine, she says. Without looking up. For the spirits. And sometimes, for the rice. You nod, not needing to understand it fully to appreciate it. They say the paddies remember, she continues. When you walk past, if they like you, they'll show you what they've seen. You glance at the surface. Just frogs. Fireflies, but then, for the briefest moment, you think you see movement deeper down, like a dance, a shimmer, a memory caught in motion. The woman stands slowly. If the Nian had stayed, she murmurs, maybe it could have learned to like this silence. But beasts like noise, don't they? It tells them they exist. She walks away without waiting for an answer, her figure disappearing between the trees. You sit a little longer, letting her words settle in your bones. Then, just as gently, you rise and begin walking again. The path leads you away from the paddies, back toward the village, where the last of the lanterns flicker like stars pretending they forgot to leave. The night has grown thick, but not heavy. Every step feels like a step through silk. Somewhere behind you, the paddies hold their breath once more.
You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, but because everything around you invites slowness. The air has cooled into something you could almost wear, a soft cloak wrapping itself around your shoulders. Each step feels like it presses a little deeper into the moment, as if the earth wants to remember you. 2. The village sits just ahead, hushed and glowing. The lanterns, fewer now, seem almost bashful, content to let the stars take over. You pass a fence of braided reeds. Behind it, a few goats shuffle in their sleep, one sneezing quietly, then sighing in what can only be described as goat contentment. A rooster nearby is visibly confused, half awake, half ready to crow, but ultimately decides it's too early. Or too late. Time's blurry like that now. The path veers toward a narrow alley that hums with memory. You know this because the walls are close, and every crack in the stone hums like a seashell to your fingertips. You trail your hand along it, letting your skin catch the whisper of generations. Laughter lingers here. Arguments, too. But only the harmless kind, over dumpling fillings and who forgot the tea leaves. Halfway down the alley, you spot a small painted door. Red, chipped at the corners. No handle, just a carved brass lion's head watching you with an expression best described as mildly unimpressed. You knock anyway. The door creaks open just enough to reveal a stairwell. You're not sure why, but you step in. The The stairs curve downward, each tread worn smooth by feet that came before yours, feet with errands, secrets, and midnight snacks. You descend slowly, counting the turns. 1, 2, 3, at the bottom, it opens into a room. Not a basement. Not a cellar. A workshop. Dimly lit by oil lamps and strings of flickering beads, the room is cluttered in the coziest way. Shelves bow under the weight of scrolls and herbs, gears, and puppets. In one corner, a fish tank glows faintly, not from light, but from bioluminescent moss. The fish ignore you. They're clearly above whatever drama you bring with you, and there, hunched over a table, is a figure, white hair bound up in a bun. Glasses the size of tea saucers. Ink-stained fingertips. They don't look up, but their voice curls across the room like a ribbon of smoke. About time, they say. Thought you'd never wander in. You hesitate. Am I supposed to be here? The figure shrugs. No one's supposed to be anywhere. But you are, and that's what matters. They gesture to a stool. You sit, because of course you do. Laid out on the table is a half-finished figurine. Of the Nian, yes, but smaller than before. This version looks less terrifying, more puzzled. One ear is too large. A fang has a chip. It's oddly endearing, used to be, the artist mutters, sanding a claw with extreme care. People feared the Nian. Then they mocked it. Then they forgot it. And now? They blow the dust from the figurine, now they decorate with it. You glance around. Sure enough, dozens of Nian figures line the shelves, angry ones, sleepy ones, one wearing sunglasses and holding a boba tea. One even has a tiny rice cooker on its back. Not so much a monster anymore, they add. More like a mascot. You think of the puppet show. The shrine. The offerings. The fireworks. It's true, the Nian is everywhere. And yet, not. Do you think it still exists? You ask, the artist doesn't answer right away. Just smiles, not unkindly, and lights a stick of incense that smells like pine and toasted barley. Things like the Nian, they say, don't die. They wait. They change. They hide in stories and shadows, and sometimes in the space between seconds. They hold the little figurine up to the light. Maybe the real question is, does it want to be found? You nod, slowly. They gesture again, this time to a low shelf where a delicate paper box rests beneath a glass dome. Would you like to see the oldest one? They ask. You kneel. Inside the box is a tiny Nian carved from what looks like dried mulberry bark. Its face is peaceful. Its limbs are curled, asleep. Beside it rests a poem, written in the flowing calligraphy of someone long gone. You can't read every character, but you catch the last line, even monsters grow tired. Let them dream, too. You sit back, feeling something shift inside you, not an epiphany, not a revelation. Just warmth. The kind that comes from finally putting something down after carrying it too long. The artist ties a ribbon around the newest figurine, then hands it to you. Take it, they say. Not for protection. Just to remember. You thank them, cradling the figure like a fragile thought. It's light, but it grounds you more than anything else tonight. You head back up the stairs. Outside, the sky has deepened into velvet. The village is nearly asleep. A dog barks once, then curls into itself like a comma at the end of a long sentence. You turn toward the hills. Toward rest. Toward the soft ending you've earned tonight. Behind you, the little red door closes on its own, clicking shut like a story reaching its last page. You walk on now with the figurine nestled in your palm, its tiny chipped fang cool against your skin. There's something comforting in its imperfection, as though the Nian, too, had been through a few rough winters and never quite got around to growing all the way up. The air around you is thick with quiet, the kind of quiet that comes only after everyone has eaten, danced, burned their fireworks, and finally admitted they're a little sleepy. A soft breeze brushes your cheek, almost like a cat's tail in passing. You follow it. The path rises gently now, leading away from the village. Not far, just up a sloping hill that overlooks everything below. Your feet find the rhythm without you needing to think. You don't even need to look down. The gravel crunches just enough to let you know you're still here, still real, still moving through the dreamscape of a myth. At the top of the hill, a pine tree leans slightly to one side like it's dozing off mid-guard duty. Beneath it sits a man with an old-style flute resting in his lap, carved from bamboo and worn smooth at the mouthpiece. You almost greet him aloud, but he lifts a hand gently before you can speak, a not unfriendly motion that says, "Just listen." So you do. The air seems to listen, too. The leaves hush. The wind slows. Somewhere below, a final sparkler fizzles out with a last enthusiastic crackle, then gives up the ghost. The man raises the flute and plays. It's not a grand melody, not a song of war or kings. It's the sort of tune you hum when you're sweeping the floor, when you're boiling rice and waiting for the steam to rise. A tune without ambition. Just presence. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the world falls away, not dramatically, just like a blanket slipping from your shoulders. In that space, the music weaves itself into the scenes of the night, and you find yourself standing not on a hill, but somewhere else. It's hard to say exactly where. The path beneath your feet is softer now, more ancient. Pebbles give way to flattened stones, rounded by centuries. Lanterns hang from trees that haven't grown in your world for 1,000 years, and there, across the path, the Nian, not charging. Not snarling, just standing. It's smaller than you imagined, still formidable, yes, but less apocalypse on four paws and more local menace in need of therapy. Its eyes glow faintly, not with rage, but curiosity. It studies you, head cocked to one side, as though it expected someone else, or maybe no one at all. You don't move. Neither does it. The wind picks up slightly, and the flute music follows you here, as if refusing to be left behind. The Nian twitches an ear. You swear it's listening, then, slowly, it pads forward, not with menace, but with the caution of a creature used to being chased away. It sniffs the air, then lowers its head until its nose is nearly touching your palm, the figurine, the tiny, imperfect version of itself you've carried all this way. It snorts, then sneezes. A little spark shoots from one nostril. You flinch. The Nian does not. Instead, it sits, just like that, cross-legged, as if it's decided you're not worth the trouble, or maybe worth more than trouble. Hard to tell with mythological beasts, they're notoriously bad at small talk. You sit too. Because what else can you do? And in that strange stillness, you understand something that no scroll or elder ever quite explained. The Nian isn't a symbol of fear. Not really. It's a symbol of timing. It comes once a year, not to destroy, but to remind. To shake the ground and rattle the dishes so people will pause, reset, and start again. Like a ritual reboot. A very loud, toothy "have you tried turning it off and on again?" And people, being people, did what they always do. They adapted. Painted it red, built it into their stories, turned its appearances into festivals. The fear became fun. The threat became theater, but the Nian never changed. It just waited, and now here you are, sitting beside it under lanterns that hum with memory. The creature blinks slowly, then rises. Without another sound, it turns and walks into the trees. Its tail sweeps behind it like a brushstroke on silk. Then it vanishes, not with a roar or a puff of smoke, but like mist when the sun gets serious. You open your eyes again. The hill. The pine tree. The man with the flute, still there, only now, he's not playing. He's watching you. A faint smile pulling at one corner of his mouth. Some dreams, he says, standing slowly, are old enough to wake up. He nods once, then disappears down the other side of the hill, leaving you with only the night, the stars, and the quiet companionship of everything you've just felt. You lie back on the grass, fingers loosely curled around the figurine. The village flickers below, tucked into itself like a cat in a basket. Above, the stars blink lazily, as if even the heavens are half asleep, and somewhere, deep in the folds of story and silence, the Nian walks, no longer feared, no longer alone. The cool night air settles softly against your skin, and you stand up slowly, brushing the grass from your clothes. The figurine still rests gently in your palm, its chipped fang catching the faint moonlight. You take a deep breath, tasting the subtle scent of earth and pine, and start your descent back toward the village. The path winds down through ancient rice paddies, their glassy surfaces reflecting the star-speckled sky. The water looks calm, too calm to hold any lurking monsters. You smile at the thought, remembering how the Nian once feared these fields at dusk. It's strange to think of such a fierce creature trembling at the sight of tender green shoots and shimmering pools of water. It seems almost human. You step carefully between the paddies, feeling the soft mud squish beneath your shoes. The distant croak of frogs adds a rhythmic punctuation to the night stillness, a gentle soundtrack to your slow walk. Somewhere nearby, crickets chirp in a call and response pattern, as if trading sleepy secrets under the blanket of darkness. Along the way, you spot a small cluster of lanterns bobbing gently in the breeze. Curious, you approach and discover a group of villagers quietly tying red paper charms onto bamboo poles. The glow from their lanterns flickers on their faces, calm, serene, focused. They don't notice you at first, and you watch in silence as they work. One of them looks up and smiles warmly. "You're back," she says softly. "Did you meet the Nian?" You nod, feeling the figurine press lightly against your palm. "I did." She gestures toward the paddies. "We believe the Nian still wanders these fields on certain nights, but it won't harm us if the rice is strong and the lights are bright." Her voice is soothing, like a lullaby woven from centuries of trust. You ask about the red charms, and she explains they are meant to guide the Nian away from the village and toward the light, the same way farmers have done for generations. The charms flutter in the breeze, casting delicate shadows on the water's surface. As you listen, you realize that these rituals are more than just superstitions. They're acts of care, a way of acknowledging a powerful force without fear. It's a dance between respect and resilience, where the line between monster and guardian blurs. The villagers begin to hum a soft tune, a melody that feels like a warm blanket wrapping around you. Their voices rise and fall gently, blending with the sounds of the night. You find yourself humming along, the music settling deep inside your chest. When the song ends, the villagers bow their heads and return to their tasks, the peaceful rhythm of their movements lulling you further into a sense of calm. You thank them quietly and continue on your way, the figurine still clutched softly in your hand. The path leads you back to the heart of the village, where the last embers of fireworks glow faintly in the distance. You pause to watch, feeling the soft warmth of community and tradition wrap around you like a well-worn quilt. Tonight, the Nian is not a monster to fear but a story to cherish, a gentle reminder of the cycles that shape us, the fears that transform, and the lights we kindle to guide us through the dark. You take one last breath of the cool night air, feeling your eyelids grow heavy. The journey has brought you here, to this quiet moment of rest and reflection, and as you settle down to sleep, the Nian story drifts with you, a soft whisper on the breeze, promising peace until dawn. You awaken, or at least you think you do, to a world tinged with soft gold, morning slipping in quietly, like a secret shared only with the dawn. The village is still wrapped in that gentle haze where sounds are muffled and shadows stretch like yawning cats. The Nian story lingers with you, a slow river winding through your thoughts as you rise. The crispness of the early air fills your lungs, a refreshing start after the humid night. You find yourself drawn toward the river that snakes lazily near the village edge, its surface glinting like liquid glass in the sunlight. Along the bank, you notice tiny paper boats bobbing gently in the current. They are carefully folded, each one adorned with calligraphy wishes, blessings, or whispered hopes. Some carry flickering candles, their flames dancing softly in the morning breeze. It's a quiet ritual, a gentle farewell to the night spirits. You kneel to watch the boats drift, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. The water murmurs stories, ancient and ongoing, of cycles, endings, and beginnings. The Nian's presence seems woven into these ripples, an echo in the gentle flow. Nearby, an elderly woman tends to a patch of wildflowers, her hands moving with a rhythm as old as the soil itself. She looks up and smiles, her eyes crinkling like worn parchment. You awaken, or at least you think you do, to a world tinged with soft gold, morning slipping in quietly, like a secret shared only with the dawn. The village is still wrapped in that gentle haze where sounds are muffled and shadows stretch like yawning cats. The Nian story lingers with you, a slow river winding through your thoughts as you rise. The crispness of the early air fills your lungs, a refreshing start after the humid night. You find yourself drawn toward the river that snakes lazily near the village edge, its surface glinting like liquid glass in the sunlight. Along the bank, you notice tiny paper boats bobbing gently in the current. They're carefully folded, each one adorned with calligraphy wishes, blessings, or whispered hopes. Some carry flickering candles, their flames dancing softly in the morning breeze. It's a quiet ritual, a gentle farewell to the night spirits. You kneel to watch the boats drift, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. The water murmurs stories, ancient and ongoing, of cycles, endings, and beginnings. The Nian's presence seems woven into these ripples, an echo in the gentle flow. Nearby, an elderly woman tends to a patch of wildflowers, her hands moving with a rhythm as old as the soil itself. She looks up and smiles, her eyes crinkling like worn parchment. You carry the Nian's tale with you, she says softly. It is a story that flows like this river, sometimes wild, sometimes still, but always moving forward. You nod, sensing the truth in her words. She offers you a small bundle wrapped in faded cloth. Inside, you find a handful of dried rice stalks and a tiny bell fashioned from bronze. The rice feeds us, and the bell calls the spirits home, she explains. Carry these with you, and you will never be far from the Nian's watchful eye. You tuck the bundle safely into your pocket and rise, feeling the gentle weight like a talisman of connection as you walk back toward the village center. The streets begin to fill with life, children chasing each other with laughter like birdsong, vendors setting up stalls fragrant with spices and freshly baked treats, and neighbors greeting each other with warm bows and smiles. The celebration continues, but now it feels different, less about chasing away a monster and more about honoring a shared past and hopeful future. You pause at a small shrine dedicated to the Nian, where offerings of rice cakes and tangerines sit in neat piles. The air carries the faint scent of incense, mingling with the earthy aroma of steamed buns. You find a quiet spot nearby and settle down, the sun warming your back. Your fingers brush the figurine in your pocket, a reminder that stories, like people, carry many faces and many moods. In this peaceful moment, you understand that myths like the Nian do not simply disappear, they evolve, soften, and fold gently into the fabric of daily life. They become lullabies sung at dusk, shadows dancing in firelight, and the comforting hum of traditions passed down like cherished blankets. And as you watch the village awaken fully, you feel the steady beat of a world that turns slowly, patiently, and kindly, a world where even monsters can find rest. The afternoon sun now casts a warm, honeyed glow across the village, stretching shadows long and lazy as if even the day itself is ready to settle down. You find yourself wandering through the bustling market square, where stalls brim with colorful silk fabrics, fragrant herbs, and freshly picked produce, each item whispering stories of fields tended, hands worn, and seasons watched with patient eyes. A friendly old vendor catches your gaze and beckons you over with a crooked finger. His stall is a curious mix of objects: smooth river stones, tiny wooden carvings, and a small collection of ancient-looking scrolls. He picks up a faded piece of paper and hands it to you. This, he says with a knowing smile, is a poem about the Nian, written centuries ago by a wandering scholar. It speaks of the beast not as a terror, but as a guardian of time's endless dance. You read the delicate characters, their strokes flowing like a gentle stream. When the year's breath holds its final sigh, the Nian walks beneath the crimson sky, not to harm, but to remind and renew, the old made fresh, the ancient made new. The vendor leans in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Some say the Nian's roar is the sound of change itself, a reminder that nothing stays still, not the rice fields, not the seasons, and certainly not us. You smile, feeling the truth of his words ripple through you like a soft breeze. Around you, the market hums with life, vendors calling out, children darting between stalls, and the distant clatter of wooden wheels on stone. As you stroll through the vibrant scene, you notice a group of musicians tuning their instruments nearby. Their flutes and drums soon fill the air with a melody both ancient and familiar, weaving the spirit of the Nian into the very fabric of the afternoon. You pause, closing your eyes to let the music carry you. The rhythm pulses gently like a heartbeat, steady and soothing, drawing you back to the stories you've heard and the quiet wisdom they hold. Remember that figurine in your pocket? It feels heavier now, filled not just with clay but with the weight of tradition and the lightness of hope. Nearby, children chase one another with laughter that bubbles up like a spring, their joy a living testament to the enduring power of myth and memory. You think about how the Nian, once a figure of fear, has become a symbol of renewal, a reminder that even the wildest forces can be woven into the tapestry of everyday life. The sun dips lower, painting the sky in shades of rose and amber. The village prepares for evening, lanterns flickering to life, and the scent of jasmine drifting softly on the cooling breeze. You find a quiet bench, settling in to watch the gentle transformation from day to night. The Nian story, once shadowed by fear, now feels like a warm thread running through the community's heart, a story to cradle, to carry, and to share. And as the last light fades, you feel a deep calm settle within you, a peacefulness born from knowing that some myths are not meant to frighten but to comfort, guiding you gently into the night. You stand on the highest terrace just as the first pale fingers of dawn touch the horizon. The air is cool and still, like the pause between heartbeats. Below you, the rice paddies lie in perfect tiers, their waters reflecting the soft pink of morning sky. Even the mist that clung so stubbornly last night has begun to lift, wisps dissolving into the new day. Behind you, the village sleeps, rooftops empty, lanterns extinguished, all that remains a gentle hush. You breathe in deeply, tasting rice-sweet air and dew-fresh earth. It's in these moments, scientists note, that terraced paddies can reduce morning temperatures by up to 5 degrees Celsius, creating microclimates essential for crop growth and nocturnal rituals alike. In the distance, you hear the softest rustle of movement. You turn, and there it is. The Nian, crouched on a far ridge, its silhouette drawn against the soft glow. For a heartbeat, it stands motionless, as if uncertain whether the night has truly passed or merely shifted. It doesn't roar. It doesn't lunge. Instead, it takes a single step forward, then another, until it reaches the edge of the highest terrace. You watch as it lifts its head, nose tilted toward the sky, sniffing the scent of dawn-breaking rice. Then it bows its head once, almost imperceptibly, as though acknowledging the ritual you've shared. And in that small gesture, you realize this moment is as much about ceremony as it is about myth. Throughout history, farmers timed their planting and harvest by observing the moon's phases and tracking the sun's solstice positions. Early records from the Han Dynasty show careful notes on dawn temperatures and dew patterns to optimize yield. These same observations guided rituals to honor rice deities and ensure seasonal harmony. The Nian, weather monster, guardian, or cosmic accountant, was woven into that calendar. When the first light of day breaks after New Year's Eve, the creature knows its time has come. As the sun crests the hills, the fields glow copper bright. And the Nian, in turn, must return to shadow. You watch as it moves with surprising grace, each step precise, hooves or claws leaving no print in the soft earth. Some scholars argue the Nian legend originated as an allegory for seasonal transition, while others insist it began as a cautionary story to enforce communal labor and annual inspection, in effect. This debate continues to unfold among folklorists and agrarian historians, but here, in the cool dawn, none of that matters. You only see the creature's retreat, a slow, deliberate fade into the forest's edge. Its horns disappear behind bamboo stalks, its scaled back sinks beneath ferns. The paddies grow brighter, the birds begin to stir, and the world exhales. You remain still, savoring the hush. The first rooster's crow echoes across the valley, the official pause to your vigil. You know that, by lunchtime, the terraces will fill with workers, laughter, and everyday hustle. But for now, the fields belong to memory, to myth. To the Nian's final bow, you turn and descend the terrace steps, the soft mud cool beneath your feet. Each row of rice seems to whisper farewell, a promise that the story will return next year. And as you reach the bottom, the village's gates creak open with a familiar warmth, a welcome home. Now that you've witnessed the Nian's last graceful retreat, let your mind drift gently on the soft currents of dawn. With each breath, feel the humid cloak of night fall away, replaced by the comforting warmth of morning's first light. Sense how the world has balanced itself once more. The silent paddies, freshly kissed by dewdrops, stand as living mirrors of calm. The terraced fields, now awash in pastel hues, seem to hum with quiet satisfaction. Imagine yourself reclining on the familiar earthen path, your head resting upon a cushion of soft grass and fragrant straw. Hear the distant chime of the village bell calling in the new day, each toll a gentle reminder that cycles turn slowly, intentionally. The soft rustle of rice stalks swaying in the breeze becomes a lullaby, each whisper guiding you toward deeper ease. Feel your eyelids grow heavy, as though weighted by the gentle gravity of ancestral rhythms. Picture how the villagers will soon stir, stretching, greeting neighbors, brewing tea scented with jasmine and ginger, yet this morning belongs to stillness. The last sparkler's glow has faded, the final lantern's flicker surrendered to the sun, and the Nian story now drifts like dandelion seeds on a hush of wind. You might hear an old woman's voice, soft as dust motes in a sunbeam. Balance is born of ritual, and peace of shared myth. Let those words settle within you. A tiny kernel of comfort nestled in the fertile soil of your mind. As your breath deepens, surrender fully to the hush. Allow every sound to fade until only the echo of your own heartbeat remains. And in that gentle rhythm, find the soothing pulse of the world itself, patient, enduring, kind. Sleep now, carried on the memory of the Nian's soft farewell. Let the story linger in your dreams, a warm lantern guiding you through the gentle mists of rest.